took so much flack, not just flack, but some of the U of M guys, they had heat and anger in their voices.
Towards Central?
Towards Central. U of M beat Central that game. It was the lightning game.
Oh, Brady Hoke's game, yeah.
Yeah, stopped, we had to go across the street and get new clothes, and my sons are like, let's put on U of M stuff. And, yeah, they were so cool. So now, 15 years later, we always root for Michigan State. We'll root for Ohio State when they play Michigan. And whenever Michigan loses, I think of those fans that gave us such a hard time, and I'm like, man, there you go. There's your karma right back.
Well, you know what? So, you have a good excuse.
Yes, absolutely, and especially if you're walking around with kids, that should absolutely never happen. I encourage you, after 15 years, give us another shot.
Let me ask you this, John. I actually believe that when it comes to Michigan fans and obnoxiousness, I actually find, at least in my life, in my little realm, that it's actually the Walmart Wolverines.
Oh, yes.
They're more obnoxious than the true fans.
and I also find it's the Walmart Wolverines, if you want to call them that, and I guess I'm one of them to a certain extent.
Well, I do too. I don't have a problem with Walmart Wolverines. I think you grow up, you root for a team, and it's all good.
But most of the ones, especially around here, because they have to live it all the time, they have much more disdain for Michigan State than the alums who are all over the world, who all they care about is Ohio State.
Well, yes, right. And I think for me, the Walmart Wolverine talking points, the only one that I do get, I have a little fun with at times. I find a lot of humor in the little brother thing. I just think but not in a derogatory way. More, it's just let's sneak it in here and there and stuff, But I don't play the game of the inbred fans at Ohio State,
right?
Or which are things that Michigan fans talk about. Look at John laughing.
Everybody does. Everybody. It's not just Michigan fans. I know Penn State fans feel the same. Pretty close the same way about Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely, fans. And Ohio drivers. Yes. I mean, they fall right into the same class.
All right, 248-539-9797. Coming up next, the Detroit Lions. Will they contend this?
WXYT FM and WXYT HD1 Detroit. An Odyssey station. Sports headlines. All day, every day. From the Sold by Mike C Sports Desk. This is 97.1. The Ticket.
Brought to you by CGC Water Treatment. It may have been the Cade Cunningham game. 29 points, 18 of them in the third quarter, 5 triples, and the largest comeback in the franchise's last 25 years. The Pistons beat Utah 126-116 after trailing 54-32 in the second quarter. They scored 78 in the second half to amaze the Detroit crowd and get their second straight Monday win over a contender. They beat the Bucks 1 week prior in Milwaukee. The Georgia football snapping their drought against Alabama at a great time, surging down the stretch to win the national championship 33-18, taking down Michigan and the Tide in the playoffs to capture the title. A pick six sealing the victory for Kirby Smart over his former mentor Nick Saban. The Bulldogs had lost 7 straight games to Alabama before last night. And despite remaining number 10 in the college basketball AP poll, MSU's Tom Izzo remains frustrated by COVID issues, especially after the cancellation in Ann Arbor. He's calling for more transparency from the NCAA, saying that things are by far the toughest on the student athletes. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Chris Villar. For more, stay tuned to 97.1 The Ticket and Odyssey.com.
Live from the Jamie Samuelson Studio, Stoney and Jansen on 97.1 The Ticket.
97.1 The Ticket. Before we get to the Lions, I did see this on CBSSports.com. I always find these very amusing. And, usually the names pretty much don't change. 2022, way too early, top 25.
Oh, my goodness. Where'd you find this?
CBS Sports. Alabama, number 1.
Shocker.
Ohio State, 2.
2.9 miles.
Georgia, 3. Texas A&M, 4. Baylor, 5.
Wow.
Notre Dame, 6. Michigan State, 7.
Yeah, 'cause we're
Utah 8.
not even
Wake
close
Forest
yet.
9. Oklahoma 10. Clemson 11. Oregon 12. Michigan 13.
Got no problem with that.
No. And people say, well, why they have Michigan State ahead of Michigan? Well, granted, Michigan State did lose Kenneth Walker, but the losses of Michigan, especially their defense, are just massive.
Yeah. And I'm more surprised to see the teams like Baylor, where they're at. Now, they had a great year. Texas.
He's turned into really good.
Oh, yeah. Turned into one. He's always been one, yeah. Yeah. It's just, I think it's interesting when you see some of these, but it's fun to look at. And with Michigan losing as many players, and even some of them unexpected, Chris Hinton, Vince Gray, some of these players, there's a big turnover in roster.
Yes.
And so I have no problem with them being ranked. I actually kind of think that might be a little bit high right now.
Well, I thought you said they're going to be 11-1.
Yeah, but right now, that's the expectations going in for what the roster is.
I know.
Yeah. I think I said 10-2.
Oh, yeah.
No,
you said 11-1.
Yeah.
You said Michigan State.
I said Michigan State. I was going to lose to Penn State and Ohio State.
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't know.
The Lions.
Maybe somebody opt out of that game.
The Lions finished the season 3-13-1. Yesterday, Dan Campbell had his conclusion of the season press conference. They had some players that were made available. I was there. What I got out of it, more than anything else, not even just the Campbell stuff we've heard before. It's no disrespect. Very engaging and very enthusiastic. Some of the players, in talking to and observing some of the interviews, Kabinda, T.J. Hawkinson, Quora, Laurier, Kenny Sewell, they are just usually. Granted, it's talk. They are so bought in. They cannot wait for next year. Look, they don't believe that the Green Bay game carries over.
Right.
They, I asked a few of them, what's the biggest difference, of the vibe this season than last season. They said the coaching staff just talks to you like people, and the consistency of all the coaching has remained throughout the season, and that's why they love playing for Dan Campbell and the other coaches.
Yeah.
And they also talked about how important it is to them that most of the coaches played the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, obviously, but, including their head coach, who we established yesterday is one of 4 head coaches in the NHL and NFL to have played the National Football League.
Yep. And I'm not surprised at all by those comments, especially when you go through a season like this, because, you look at Mark Brunell's career. There have been times where it hasn't been, stellar in terms of the teams that he's played on.
Dan Campbell was a Lion for 2 years.
Yes, so he understands as well as anybody. Hank Fraley. Now, he had some great years in Philly, and so did... I'm drawing a blank on the receivers coach, Antoine Randall L.
By the way, speaking of Hank Fraley, Frank Ragnow just could not be more supportive, and
Hank's a great dude.
Talk about just the greatest coach and all.
Yeah.
And that's somebody who they had before that they kept over.
Yes, and they kept, but it's, when you have former players and you're going through a season like this, they understand the ups and downs of NFL seasons and the ups and downs within a season. They also understand what it's like to go through some of these patches where it's really, really hard. Things aren't going your way, and they find a way to continue to fight through it. So there's just an added perspective that they have that other coaches can have after coaching in that. But when you're a player and you're on the field and you're going through that, it's something different, and they bring that to this team, and you can see that this team is bought into Dan Campbell and everything that he's trying to do.
Yeah, 248-539-9797. So the question is simple: do you expect them to contend next year for a playoff spot? Is that realistic? We've seen teams in the past that have gone the old, worst to first mantra, things like that. They're a 3-win football team this year. How many wins do you obviously anticipate them getting. Look, it's obviously, we talked about the way too early top 25. We have no idea who they're drafting. We have no idea of free agency. We have no idea on a lot of stuff. So just speculating. I do not expect them to contend. I expect them to be hovering around 500, through a lot of the season, and I do not expect them to win more than 7 games next year. I just don't. I just think that's a natural progression when you have a young team. Hopefully I'll be wrong. Hopefully they'll spend their free agents and get guys who are going to be, I don't know necessarily game changers, but really good major contributors. And some of the guys like Tracy Walker, they'll be able to maintain and keep.
Right. Yeah. You hope they keep the guys that have been able to have an impact this year. Mm-hmm. Tracy Walker, Charles Harris. Some of these guys that have played well.